what we'll treat today is going to be a long class, right? Because we didn't exhaust what we're supposed to do in our last class. So we'll finish what we're supposed to do in our last class and also uh focus on what we'll be doing on or in this class at the same time. Okay, so in this class, we'll talk about JavaScript object data type. You know, the last time we talked, we looked at JavaScript arrays, right? We looked at JavaScript arrays. So this time we are going to look at the object data type. Then after that, we'll look at conditional statements. Then from conditional statements, we'll go into loops. And after loops, we are going to go into functions and see different types of functions and the rest. Okay, so diving into details for this class, we'll be looking at, okay, we will talk a bit about arrays in JavaScript, right? Because some people might maybe have forgotten about it. Then data, object data type, data manipulation, object manipulation. Then we'll talk about conditional statements, which is else, if else, and all right, this is supposed to be else, if else statement, not else if. Okay, but then we're also going to look into switch statements for while and do while loop. We'll see why looping is important, why we can't do without it. Then we are also going to look at functions, arrow functions, and anonymous functions. We'll see why some functions are called arrow functions and then why some are called anonymous functions. Okay, so let's go over to VS Code. I know you guys can't actually see my screen. So I'll soon switch it. Just give me a little while. Okay. So it's switching, and yes, I hope you guys can see my screen already. Sorry. Can you guys see my VS Code? Hello, can you guys see my VS Code?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So let me continue. Okay, so this is what we did in our last class, right? We stopped at the find method, right? And I also talked about filter. So can someone tell me the difference between filter and find? Anybody who can try? Okay, someone is saying I should zoom in. Okay, I guess that's big enough. So, who can tell me the difference between find and filter? Those two methods, what are their difference? So if you might have forgotten, find and filter can be used on arrays, but the two of them act in two different ways. So can anybody try?
All right, sir.
Okay.
You said you specified that filter is basically for finding a particular element, irrespective of how many times it's occurs. So for example, if we filter Martins, then it will show us in the number of times that Martins actually exists. Why find function actually just show us once.
Okay, you have an idea there. So filter is going to return all the occurrence for Martins. Okay, then find is going to return only the first occurrence for Martins. So which means filter is going to return an array. Okay, while find is going to just return that singular element that you're trying to look for. Okay, so that's the difference between filter and find. Okay, and then let's see. We didn't talk about how to loop through an array, right? Okay, we talked about using map and for each. Okay, and also let me try to refresh your memory. Can someone tell me the difference between map and for each? Who knows the difference between map and for each? I think I mentioned it in the last class we had. So what's the difference? Can anybody try? Anybody? Nobody? Someone should try. There's a difference between map and filter. Although the two of them can be used for similar purpose, but there's just one little difference between both of them. So nobody, right?
I did so.
Yeah, okay. Want to try?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can speak. What's the difference? Um, we can't hear you in case you're speaking. Okay, so I can't hear whoever is trying to speak. Nobody's trying to speak then. So let me just say the difference between map and filter. So yeah, not map and filter, sorry, map and for each. Map is used, map returns a value, right? So if you put in, if you try to maybe do something to every element in an array, right? And you want to receive a new array, right? After manipulating those elements in the array, you want to receive a new array as an output, right? You're going to use map because map is going to definitely want to return something back. But if you use for each is not going to return anything to you. Okay, so for each just loops and does what you it applies what you want it to apply to each element, and it doesn't actually return anything back, or it doesn't allow you to return anything. Okay, so for people that uh feel I'm speaking in tongues, right? Let me try to demonstrate what I'm trying to explain. So if I used for each, right? If I used for each student, I can't return inside this for each. Rather, I would want to do whatever I want to do inside here. I could say console.log console.log then I would say my name is then student. Okay. Even if I try to return something, now look at this. Even if I try to return something, let me say let me just return students alone, just each student, right? And then I run this code and node script.js. What you'd see is this line of code is what is being printed, right? My name is student, my name is Martins, my name is Celestine, and the rest. But this where you're seeing this undefined is from here, this S. So nothing is, even if you're trying to return something on your for each, that return statement or that return wouldn't work because for each is not going to return anything. Okay. So peradventure, if I comment that particular line of code and run that script again, you see undefined is what we get for the value of S, right? But what if you wanted to, let's say, what if you wanted to, you didn't just want to print this out, but you wanted to create a new array from, um, like modify each value for this array, right? And then save it as a new array and log it out. So what we'll definitely do is we'll copy this, we'll paste it there. I can remove this line of code, right? And then I can change this to map. So when I change that to map, see what happens. If I run this code now, okay, what do we have here? Sorry, node scripts, student, my name. Okay, sorry. I'll use a plus rather than comma. So if I run that, you'd see my name is Celestine, my name is Lovett, my name is Martin, my name is Precious, my name is Martins. Okay. So this is possible because we are using map. So map is going to create a new array and then save it here. But if I change this back to for each and run it, you would see that nothing is being returned here for us to maybe log out. That's the difference between those two. Okay, so you can use this to for each map to iterate through each element in your array. Okay. And there are other ways to iterate through by using loops, right? And remember, we are going to talk about loops in this class, right? But before we go into loops, let's go into objects. Okay, so arrays are objects too. In fact, let me do this. If we come here and we said, I want to log out the type of students. Of course, we know students is an array, right? But if we said console.log, if we say console.log type of, now some of you would say if I write type of like this and write students, that I'm wrong. No, I'm not. So it will tell you that this is an object, right? Okay. And what is the use of type of? Type of is used to check the type of a maybe a variable, right? So if I also did this, if I write type of students, this is also going to work out perfectly well. So in case you see someone write this, right? Check the value of students this way, or the person did it another way, right? You definitely know that, oh, okay, it's still the same thing, right? But there are two ways of using it or applying it. Cool. So let me remove that. Now, let me also remove this part because we won't use it for now. So this is an array of students, right? Okay, but how do we create objects? Okay. So what are objects first? So objects are key value. Objects are special kind of variable that hold key value pairs. Okay, so I've said objects are special kind of variables that hold key value pairs. So here, even arrays, right, hold key value pairs, but the key to the element of an array is its index. So the key to Celestine is the index of 0, the key to Lovett is the index of 1, and so on and so forth. Okay, but objects objects allow you as the user to specify the kind of key you want to use to point to a particular value. So I could decide to do this. I could decide to create two students. I could say student one should be equals to, now this is how to create an object. You put double braces there, double brackets, right? Or double curly brackets or curly braces. So with this, I've created an empty object. Okay, I've created an empty object. I could console.log the type of student one. It's still going to tell me it's an object. Okay, it's going to tell me it's an object. So in case you're trying to check, you see array and you say type of and it shows an object, and you see object and it shows type of object, right? Yeah, that's JavaScript for you. Okay, so what we can do here is we can pre-input values, right? So I could say maybe the name of that student, yeah, let me use name of that student would be Celestine. Let me just copy it and paste from here. So I'd say Celestine Its track. Its track is Node.js. Okay, cool. So student one name is Celestine, his track is Node.js. I could decide to create another student. I could say const student two equals to name. Student's name could be love it. And then her track can also be Node.js. Right. And of course, if you want to maybe log out this student, right, we'll just say student one, right? So let me clear here and let's run node and script.js. So we see we have student, the full object being outputted here. So we have name, Celestine, track, Node.js. If I want to output students two, of course, I'll just change that to students two and run the code again. But now, how do I access each property of this object, right? Remember that if this was an array, I would have maybe, let's say if I was working with these students, I would say students at the index of 0, right? But this is not just an ordinary array. These are objects, right? So I might want to access the name of this first student or the track of this first student. So how do I do that? I'll say student one. There are two ways of doing it. I could use what is called the dot notation. So I'll say student one dot name. And if I clear and then run again, you'd see Celestian. Okay. But then if I want to get the track, I would say track that way. And of course, you would see Node.js. That's one way to access it. Another way to access it is to use the bracket notation, similarly to how we access arrays. But this time, you're not going to put in numbers here or the index of the elements you're trying to access. Rather, you put in the key. So now, look, this is the key, right? And this is the value for this key. So this is another key, and this is the value for this key. So for you to get this value, you have to reference this key to point to this value. So if I said student one, and then in that bracket, I put name there, we come back here and execute that. You see Celestian, okay? If I say dot track, so VS Code is smart enough to know that you want to choose the track. So now, if you want to get if you're using VS Code and you want to get recommendations on what to maybe fill here, right? You can press Control and space. So that's going to give you options, right? Or yeah, recommendations on what you can put there. So I could say name, Control and space, track, and then I could choose that as track. Okay. So doing that, we still have that same result. Okay. So how can we add uh properties dynamically? So I think let's just work with students one alone. How about if I want to add a value here, right? Or a new property into this object, right? Okay, so this is another thing you need to know, right? Objects are made of properties. So this object, right, has this property, has two properties, this property and this other one, okay? And then this first property has a key and a value. In fact, all properties in an object has key are actually keys and values, right? And of course, the key name is name, right? Or the key is name and the value, right, is the Celestian. Now, this the value for the key in your object can be anything. It must not always be a string. It can be a number, it can be a boolean, it can be a function, it can be an array, it can be whatever data type you want to use. Okay. So if I wanted to add another value here, let's say, let me do that before and after thing I used to do. So I'd say before and after, or just duplicate that and say after. So someone might ask, how did I duplicate? Well, so if I want to duplicate this full line, right, my cursor just needs to be anywhere on this line. Then I just do Control C and Control V at the same time. It's going to duplicate that line. Okay, so for people that don't know, might want to ask. So now what I want to do is I want to add a new property to this student one. Okay, so to add it, I would say student one dot I'm thinking of a property. Someone should suggest to me a property I could add to student one. Everybody has
Maybe
a
age.
Okay, cool. Age. So someone says age. So I'd say dot age should be equals to I think Celestine is actually quite old or quite young. I don't know. I don't know which age I should use. 25. Okay, so with what I just did, right? I have added a new value to that to that student, right? And then if I come here, I clear the console and I run this again, you see? So before there was no age property, right? There. But then um after doing this, we have age to be 25. So you see that, you see the difference, right? Then how about now we've seen how to add, right? You can add. Now, how about I want to change the track, right? I want to change the student's track. How do I do it? I would say track should be equals to I don't know, React. And then if I run that, you'd see that before Celestine had the track of Node.js, but after my manipulation, it now has the track of React. Okay. So how this works? If the key that you're trying to reassign exists, right? That key will be reassigned. If it doesn't exist, it's going to be created, right? Did I say key? The property you're trying to manipulate, if that property exists, it will be um changed, right? The value of that property will be changed. But if that property does not exist, right, it will be created. Okay, so we've seen how we can add to an object. We've seen how we can modify properties in an object, or a property in an object. Then you might also ask, how do you remove a property from an object, like delete a property from an object? You delete a property by using the delete keyword. You say delete, then I could say student one, which is the object dot track. So doing that, let me clear this and run that. You see, so before it had the name and the track properties, right? But after deleting, he just has the name property. The track has been removed. Okay, so that is what you can do with an object. You can remove, you can add to it. An object can contain an array, right? So I could say uh hobbies or interests. Let me use hobbies, or is that how it's being spelled? Hobbies. Which one?
Yes, is correct.
I did the right thing before. Sorry about
Yes.
that. Okay, so hobbies could be football, reading. Is sleeping a hobby?
Yes.
So you don't have anything to do, you just start sleeping. Hmm. What did the Bible say about people that sleep like that?
Sleeping is a talent.
It's talent, right? Okay.
Yes.
So there was something the Bible said about sleeping that the a little sleep, a little slumber, and what did they say that poverty will not hit anybody, oh, God forbid. Okay, so I won't include sleeping. I'd say writing, right? It's normal that everybody should sleep. So if we run this now, we'll see. Okay, so the before and after is the same. So we'll see before, after, the hobbies, right? Reading, football, reading, writing, and objects can also contain an object. Okay, so um, you could have something like maybe banks. I don't know how many banks you use, or bank info. And then we could say something like maybe his name, or bank name. That's the bank this guy uses. Maybe um Bank and whatever account number. Uh, I don't know if that's up to 11. It's more than 11. So, okay. So also, you see, everything still works out fine. So it can contain anything. Okay. So um, it can also contain a function. Okay. So that's the basic of um objects in JavaScript. Now, an array can contain objects. In fact, if you're working with maybe an API, right? Or you're okay, you guys will build an API definitely. If you're returning information from your API to maybe a mobile app, or a website, maybe written in React or whatever. If uh maybe you're trying to get a list of user information, right? So a single user information might come with maybe his first name, his last name, his email address, his phone number, and all this stuff. But you want to return a list of users with their info, right? So of course you already know that that is going to be an array of objects. So which means you're going to list out all those users, and each element in that array would be an object. Okay, so it's important to know these two very well. So does anybody have any question based on arrays, objects in JavaScript? Anybody, or everybody understands the topic and we can move on? I'm listening. Anybody share your concerns, your complaints, in terms of JavaScript objects or JavaScript array? So there's nobody. All right, so let's move on. Now, uh, we are going to go into uh conditional statements, right? So what are conditional statements? Okay, so um you don't want your code to just be executing linearly, right? It should be able to make decisions. For example, if you're writing a banking app, right? Let's take a banking app, for example. You don't want a user to withdraw more than his account balance, right? Or you don't want a user that is suspended to be able to log in, right? So how do you tell your system or your program, right, to make that decision, to check, oh, does this person have it in sufficient funds? Oh, if he has it, do this. Or if he doesn't have it, if he doesn't have that's the amount he's trying to withdraw, then don't process his request. Okay. Or what do banks do today when they restrict your accounts? They say in a day you can withdraw only 20,000. If you try to withdraw more than 20,000, we won't process your request, right? Maybe you have to wait till the next day. All those restrictions, right? So how do programs make that decision? How do they even know about the decision and how to make it? That's where what is called a conditional statement comes in, right? Okay, so I don't want to remove these students, so I'll just leave it there. So what are conditional statements? So conditional statements are used to inform your program, right, about what to do if a particular condition is met. So if a particular condition is true, do one thing. If it's not true, do another thing. Okay, if and also you can have a set of maybe more than one or more than two conditions you want to check to make sure that, oh, this condition has to be true before this works, or if this condition is true, right, this other one should execute. Okay, so how do we do that? Okay, let me see. Let's write something. Is this true? Is this true? Okay, so is this true should be equals to 5 greater than 2. Okay, so look, is this true? Right, is 5 greater than 2? Of course, if we console.log this statement, we are going to see that that statement is indeed true. Okay, sorry. I think is this true should be, what did I do? Okay, is this true should be all camel case. Yes, so let me clear this part and we should run it again. Of course, this is true, right? But I don't just want to tell maybe just output true. I want to use that to make a decision. So this is how I could do it. I would say if this is true. Now, okay, I would explain what I want to say. Okay, so if is this true, right? Okay, I'd say if this is true equals to true, but this is not necessary to, but I'll show you why I did that and how you can shorten it. So I would say console.log this is true. Okay, so if this is true, right? This is like saying if true is equals to true, and true, checking if true equals to true is always going to be true if this is true actually. Okay, so if I run this, you see this is true. I'd say, or maybe I'd say yes, this is true. Yes, this is true, right? Now, since this already evaluates to true, right? Since this line of code evaluates to true, it doesn't really make sense for me to check if true is true again, right? So I could just say, remove that part. Now, this if statement is only going to execute if the condition being checked here is true. Okay, I think I should just remove this and I'll just say is 5 greater than 2. Okay, so if this condition that so these are if statements, this is the condition, this is where I write my condition, right? And this is where I write the code that would happen if that condition is true inside this curly braces here. Okay, so if 5 is, if it's true that 5 is greater than 2, run this. Of course, if I run it, you'll see that, yes, this is true, right? That's because this statement executes or returns an output of true. But let me change this sign. Is 5 less than 2? So this is going to give us a false, right? It's not going to give us a false actually, because this statement I'm checking here evaluates to false. So since that statement is false, we can't, the if statement is not going to run. Is that simple? So if statement is just only going to be whatever you're checking here has to resolve to a true for this if statement to run. Okay. So what we can do is we can have another statement to run if uh if our condition is false, right? Or if the condition we are checking in this if statement is false, then we can have another line of code to run. And that line of code would be the else statement. So I'd say else console.log. No, this is not true. Okay, so if I run this now, you see that because this condition is false, right, is not true. That's why this line of code is being executed. Of course, if I change this back to what it's supposed to be, you see, it now runs. Okay, but then what if you had an array of, or not really an array of or an array of uh values to compare, but if you had a lot of things to compare at the same time and you want all of them, right? You want each to execute if a condition is being met, right? For example, I can say day of the week, const day of the week. So we can say if day of the week is equals to maybe Sunday. Let me just say Sunday, for example. Or what am I doing? Sorry. Sunday. Okay, so here what I can do is I can check if the day is Sunday. I think I'll just do Sunday, Monday. Sorry, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say if day of the week is equals to Friday, let's just say welcome to Friday, welcome to weekend. Then if it's Saturday, right? I want to say welcome to Saturday. So, but how do we tell it that you should check for Saturday? So what we'll do is we'll say else if sorry, else if day of the week is equals to Saturday, right? Then we would say welcome to the day before Sunday. Okay, then of course I could say, oh sorry, I could say else if the day is Sunday, if day of the week is equals to Sunday. I could say console.log happy Sunday. Or then I could say maybe else else. So if it's not Friday or it's Saturday and it's not also Sunday, then it's a weekday. So I could then console the log, um maybe happy weekday, right? So what I've done here is I'm checking, is today Friday? If it's Friday, do something. But if it's not Friday and if it's not Friday, then could be Saturday. If it's Saturday, do something else. But if it's not Saturday, it means it could be Sunday. If it's Sunday, do something else. Right? But if it's not Friday or Saturday or Sunday, just tell them happy weekday. Right? Okay, so if I execute this now, you see happy Sunday. If I change this to Friday, come here, you'd see welcome to weekend, Saturday. Saturday, you would see welcome to the day before Sunday. Of course, Monday. Oh, I wrote Monday here. So I'm supposed to say Monday here. And then of course you'd see happy weekday, right? So I've been able to check if the week day of the week is either Friday or it's Saturday or it's Sunday or it's maybe any other day, right? But then um what if the person typed, what if the person maybe puts in July, right? July, and you would say happy weekday, right? But this is not acceptable. So what we can do is we can check, we can have another if else statement here or else if statement. So we would say else if, and we could do something here. So we can say else if day of the week is equals to Monday. Now, what I want to check if the day is equals, if the day of the week is either Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. So what I'll definitely do is, let me expand this a bit. I'll do that. I'll say if day of the week is equals to Monday. Now, how do I tell my JS that if it's not Monday, I check if it is Tuesday. That's if the day of the week is either Monday or it's Tuesday or it's Wednesday or it's Thursday or yeah, I think it's Thursday. I'll stop at. Now you're going to use this symbol called the pipe symbol. So that's double line, right? It's called the pipe symbol. On my keyboard is found close to the enter key. Okay, so I could say or. So that symbol here represents or. So if day of the week is Monday, or if day of the week is equals to, or if day of the week is Tuesday, or if day of the week is equals to Wednesday, right? So I could go to the next line and say or if day of the week is equals to Thursday. Okay, so I would want to tell the person happy weekend if any of this is met, right? Then if none of that is met, I would want to console.log invalid day of the week. Okay, so let me clear my console. Of course. What day of the week did I put? Okay, let me take it back to Monday. Okay, so I'm saying if day of the week is Monday, we want to do that. So happy weekday. Of course, if I change this to Tuesday, you'd see, yeah, happy day of the week. Of course, if I change this to July, because July is not part of this list, right? And it's not checked here, right? So this is what is going to execute, right? So if I run that, you see invalid day of the week. Now, why is this executing? Because we've checked, is day of the week Friday? No. Is this Saturday? No. Is this Sunday? No. Okay. Is it Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday or Thursday? No. So this is the one that will finally execute if it's not there, right? Of course, you can have your if statements and your else if statement without having an else statement, and it would work fine, right? So maybe you don't want to, maybe you on your program you don't want to do anything if what's maybe the user inputs, right? If the user input is not what you expected, maybe you don't want to try an error message, you just want to leave it. But the best thing is to always have an else statement that should handle the base case. So that's a case where none of your conditions are met, right? You should have something, a handler, right? Something that should handle that base case. Okay, so IG just put the pipe symbol there. Right. So does anybody have a question here? So what we just did, we've talked about the pipe symbol already, and we see that we can use it to chain multiple statements to check, right? So maybe you want to or multiple conditions, you want to check multiple conditions, and if any of those conditions is true, you want to execute maybe just one body of code, right? So this saves me time. Instead of me writing week of the days equals to Monday, then I console the log something for each of them. I could just do it once, one line of code, but it's checking all this at the same time. And someone would ask, if we have or, right? This is or. So I'm saying if this is Monday, or if it's Tuesday, or if it's Wednesday. So what if I wanted to have an and, right? Okay, so let's see a scenario where we can use that. Look at this. So I could do something like this. Const, let's say user equals to, let me use an object because we just talked about objects here. So I would say the user's name, maybe the user's name should be Precious. Yes. The user's name should be Precious. The user's role should be let's say admin, right? And I want to do something. If the user's name is Precious and then the user's role is admin, so I want to check if both of them are true, right? So I want to do something. This is what I would do. I'd say if the name, if user dot name equals to Precious. Now to use the and symbol, you would use this ampersand symbol. This symbol is called an ampersand symbol, AMPRSAND, but we call it and symbol, right? It's popular for that. Two ampersand symbol is used to declare an and statement, right? And an and command. So we'd say if the name is Precious and the role is equals to admin, so we want to say console.log.
Yes, sir. Please, I have a question.
Okay, ask.
All right. You wrote if user.name because name is an object.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
role as well is an object.
okay, sorry. That was
Right.
an oversight. Sorry. So if user.name is precious and user.role is admin, I want to say hello admin. But then else, what else if either one is not true, right? Then I would want to console.log hello, and I'll write the name of the person. So I'll say user.name. Okay, so here what I'm saying is if the name is precious and the role is admin, that is when it will show this, right? Hello admin. But if, so what I'm saying is if now this else is going to execute only if either the name is not precious, right? Or the role is not admin, or both of them are false. So if the name is something other than precious, but the role is admin, it is going to execute this else statement. If the name is precious, but the role is something else, maybe it's not admin, this is going to execute. So the only time this line of code, this particular line of code is going to be executed is only if the name of this user, right, is precious and the role of that user is admin. Of course, if we clear our console and run this again, you'll see hello admin because these two are met. So and make sure that whatever you're comparing has to be true for an output of true. So this whole statement, right? This whole statement here is going to um return a true, right? So it's going to return a true to if, and since if is returning a true from or is getting a true after comparing and executing the statement, then this console.log admin is going to show. But then if I change this to maybe Victor, which is my name, and I come back here and I run that, you see hello Victor. That's because this is false, right? And but this other one is true. So what and make sure that everything has to be true. All your conditions have to be true for a true to be returned. Okay. And also if maybe the name is precious, but the role is user, and then I come back here. Yeah, it will now show hello precious because the name is precious, no doubt, but the role is not admin. The role is user, so that doesn't work. Okay, so any question? Nobody has a question, so
I do, sir.
Okay. Ask your question.
All right, sir. What if the name was meant to be an input? Like
If
it's
it's
not
what,
well specified here like this.
it will still function the same way. The if and else
Okay.
statement will the same way because whatever you're going to input is going to be taken as a string. So it's for you to either convert it if you're expecting a number. So it's still going to work the same way. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Now, now if and else statement, right, can do what switch and case statement can do, but switch statement can't do what if and else statement can do. And I'll explain. If and else statements can be used to compare a range. Okay, so we can do something like this. Score, and maybe we say the score here, maybe let's say in your test you scored 80, for example, I could say, remember that thing we used to, or marking scheme. I mean, not marking scheme. How to grade people, right? Maybe give them a remark of either pass, fail, excellence, all the stuff. You can say if um if user if user dot score is greater than 80 or is greater than or equal to 80, then you should console the log excellence, right? Excellent score or excellence, keep it up.
That's less than.
Oh, sorry, greater than or equals to 80, sorry. Okay, then I'll then say else if, so I just want to make this short. I'll say if this 60 to 80, if user dot score, if user dot score is greater than or equal to 60, I would say very good, very good. And then I could just copy this and paste again. And then I'd say if the user score is greater than or equals to 50, so I'd say fair. So here I could then say, now this is wrong. Okay, this would work, but then think about it. What if the what if the user scores, maybe by mistake you put 105 over 100? Let's say maybe this test is over 100. So you would want to say if the user score is greater than 80 and that same user. So you remember what I said? I said to use uh to say, and you would use that symbol, and you say and the user's score is the user score is less than or equal to 100. So now I've limited it from 80 to 100, right? It shouldn't pass that range. Okay, so anything less than that. So anything either above 100 or anything less than okay, anything less than 50. So I would say if the user score is if user dot score is greater than or equals to 0, and that same user score, okay, sorry, this is not where I'm supposed to do that. So I'm saying if it's greater than 50, here I could come here and say if that user score is if that user score is greater than or equals to 0, and that user score is less than 50. So this one is saying, this means saying if the user score is from 0 to 59 to 49, sorry. So I would say fail, and then I would say else. So else, this else is going to cover the case where the user score is either greater than 100 or less than 0. Imagine you having writing a test and you score like -20. So which means you'll be owing the teacher mark. You need to pay for that mark maybe the next. Don't worry, nobody's going to have that in my class track or in my track. So I'd say console the log invalid score. Because if you have 80, excellent, keep it up. If you have 65, maybe 65, yeah, very good. 50 would tell you fair. 49 for all those wicked lecturers that don't want to give you that 1 mark. Fail. 0. Still fail. 101 as your score. 101 is telling me very good. Okay. So this is another issue. So I just said if it's greater than, so of course 101 is greater than or is greater than 60, right? So I need to limit this. I'll say if that score is greater than that, and so you see, this is like practical, right? So I could say if this is greater than that and the score is less than 70, I mean less than 80, right? And I'll just copy this line here and paste it there, and I'll say 60. Okay, so if I run the 101 again, you see invalid score. Of course, if I run minus 20, you would also see invalid score. Okay, so I've been able to design a grading system or a remark system, right? So it checks your score and then adds the appropriate remark. Now, this can be done using if and else statements, right? But you can't do this same thing using a switch statement. A switch statement checks for literal values, okay? And we are going to see how switch statements work. Switch statements are similar to if and else statements, but just that they check literal cases, not they can't change range. Right, so let's see. I would say switch, and then we pass the switch here, user.score, user.score, and then I would say in the case where the score is okay, so now this is the thing. I said you can't even do this, right? So what would I use as a classic example? I think we should go back to the weekday what do they call it? That weekday implementation I did, right? So I would say Monday. I'll just make this simple. So I'll say if the case is Monday, I'll then want to say console.log weekend was so fast. Then remember, when you finish writing your case, right, always remember to add a break statement. It's important. Okay. Then you add another case, right? And then you would say maybe case where this is Tuesday. Okay. And then you would console dot log. So here you just keep on adding your cases, right? The cases you want to compare. So I'd say if this is Tuesday, the day after Monday. Okay, so maybe I'll do this, and I think I should just maybe add the default statement. So now the same way we have else, if else, and sorry, else if and if statements, right? So we have cases here. But then you remember that we have an else statement that is used to execute maybe a command, right? It used to execute a command if all your conditions, none of them were met. So in switch, right, we have what is called the default should I say the default case or the default block, right? So that one you can use it to maybe do something like console, maybe you could console.log other days of the week. So I'm just doing that, just doing this for illustration purpose, right? So default doesn't need a break statement because it's expected that after a default, there's no break statement that should follow it. Just the way after an else statement, right? You don't write another maybe else if statement there. Okay. So if we do that, you run it. Okay, what is it saying? Okay, I say these are dot score. Sorry. This is supposed to be day, not user. Yeah, I'll just say so. I'm checking day and I'm checking if the case of day is Monday. So let me clear this out. And then let's come back here. Yeah, weekend was so fast. If I change this to Tuesday, of course, the day after Monday. And I'll change this to Wednesday. Of course, if we do that, we now see other days of the week. Okay, so this should be self-explanatory, right? So Monday has its own case, right? Now, if you don't, let me remove this break statement and let me use Monday, for example. After this Monday, it will try to run through and it will run weekend. It was so fast and other days of the week at the same time. See, weekend was so fast. The day, oh, sorry. Okay, weekend was so fast, and then okay, the day after Monday, right? It's not supposed to continue. So, but since you didn't have your break statement, right? It just continued. So that's important. You need to always have that break statement there so that everything would work well. So with all that said, does anybody have a question? Anybody has something to say? A question, no, not something to say. Anybody? So I'm assuming that everybody follows what I'm doing. And if I give an assignment on switch and if and else statements, everybody will be able to do it. Am I right? Am I? Are you guys there?
Yes, boss.
Okay. All right. No problem. Now, let's move to something else. Let's move to loops, right? And let me explain why the need for loops. In fact, we actually use loop in our real life, but we don't pay attention to it. No, let me give a classic example. When you're walking to maybe buy something, maybe you're walking to church or walking to somewhere, right? You make a couple of steps towards that place, right? And it's always your left leg before your right leg, your left leg, then your right leg, and so on and so forth. Actually, you're running a loop. Your legs are moving, are doing a repeated task, right? Which is stepping one leg and then the other leg, step it, and so on and so forth, right? You keep doing that until you reach where you're going to. Okay. And the world is about loop. You wake up, okay, let's say the day, right? the sun comes up, it goes back again, it sets, and then night comes, the day comes up again, and then the sun sets and it goes, and the night comes. That is a loop if you're going to think about it that way. So it happens repeatedly. So a loop is just a set of activities, right, that happens frequently, right? And a loop can be finite or infinite. So a finite loop is a loop that has an end, like when you're trekking to where you want to buy something. I think your trekking has a time it will stop now. When you've gone to buy the thing, when you reach there, you stop, you buy what you want to buy, then you start another fresh trekking back to your home. But then some loops can be infinite, right? So like day and night, right? Till Jesus comes. I think, should we call that if an infinite loop or a finite loop? Because nobody knows when Jesus will come. So we can say it's infinite. It keeps happening, right? So a finite loop is just a loop that doesn't have an end. Finish. Shikina. All right. So there are three major ways to write a loop in JavaScript. You can write a for loop, you can write a while loop, and you can write a do while loop. Okay. And you'll see how we can write them. Look at this. That's the reason why I didn't delete this student array, because I want to use them for loops. So how do we write a for loop, right? Of course, as the name implies, for loop. So it's going to loop for a particular number of time. So as the name implies, it's always going to have an end where it's going to stop. Okay. So this is how you write a for loop. I want to write a for loop that should log out 0 to 9. Maybe the numbers 0 to 9. Okay. So say for let I equals to 0, because that is where I want to start looping from. Okay. Then where do I want, or what condition do I need to be true for that loop to keep running? I'll say while I want to continue this loop as far as I is less than 10. So what is the nearest number that is less than 10, which is 9, right? Okay. Now, how many steps do I want to take to reach that number 9? Right? I want to take one step. So when I is 1 less than 10? Yes, 1 is less than 10. Bring out 1. Then I want to move 1 step forward. So I'll say I plus plus. So that I plus plus there means after each iteration, add 1 to I. So this is called post increments. We have what is called pre-increment and post increments. So this one is like saying execute I, that's add 1 to the value of I after you have finished executing this line of code. That's the line of code I'm going to write, or this block of code here. So I then say console.log, and then in here I'll say I just want to log out I. Simple, short and simple. I've written my loop. I'm done. Then I could then run that. And of course, we have 0 to 9, right? 0 to 9. Of course, someone should tell me what I should do if I want to change this loop to print out 1 to 10 instead. Someone should try. What should I change?
Please, can you repeat the question, sir?
Listening. Who is trying? Yeah, I said
Please,
I don't want the loop to print out 0 to 9. I want it to print out 1 to 10. So what should I change?
Okay, good
that
afternoon,
will
sir.
be I equals to 1.
Okay, that's one. Someone else should tell me another thing I should do apart from changing I equals to 1. So that's one thing, correct?
Okay, good
What else should
afternoon,
I do?
sir.
Yes?
Hello. Hello. I think if we change that 10 to 11, it will print to 10.
Yes, that's
That
correct.
is I less than 11.
Yeah, I less than 11 is correct. Right. So if we do that, we have 1 to 10. But another thing we could do is we can say instead of changing that to 11, we can say while I
Less
is
than or equals to
10. So that's still going to work. Okay. So what are we saying here? So let me explain how this loop works, right? We say I should be 1. So we are keeping it at 1 first. We are saying I please remain 1 at this point in time. When I'm checking, the next thing that will happen is we are checking. Is I greater than, oh sorry, is I less than or equal to 10? Now the value of I is 1, right? And we are checking, is 1 greater than, sorry, is 1 less than or equal to 10? 1 is less than 10 now. So this is true. So since this is true, right? The next thing we want to do is we want to add 1 to I, but we want to add 1 to yes, 1 to the value of I after this code has been executed, after this block of code has been executed. Okay, that's why we are saying I plus plus. So if I did something like this, if I change this to plus plus I, we would see a different thing here. Okay, what's this showing here? Okay, plus plus I and I plus plus are giving us the same value. Okay, I'll clarify what's the difference between I plus plus and plus plus I. Maybe in another class, but not in this class. Okay, so let's see. Let's continue. I plus plus, right? We are saying add 1 to the value of I, right? So
yes, sir, please, I
after
have a
this has
question.
been executed. Okay, ask.
All right, sir. In the let I, where exactly did the I come from?
Okay, so now this I is a normal variable. I could name it W. Whenever I'm naming it W, I would have to name everything. So okay, this is what I would do. See, let count equals to 1, right? Then where count is less than 10, and then increase count by 1. But then in here, I want to log out count. So I is just a variable, a normal variable. But the reason people like using I most times is I stands for iteration, right? So in fact, whatever variable you're going to use here is going to stand for the iteration. So now, what is an iteration? An iteration is the number of time a loop runs. So if a loop runs 10 times, it means that loop has 10 iterations to complete. So when the loop runs the first time and it successfully runs that first time, it's called its first iteration. When the loop runs the second time, right, that second time is called the second iteration. When it runs the third time, it's called the third iteration, and so on and so forth till it's reaches the end of its execution. So that's just a normal variable, and if I execute this again, it still prints out the 1 to 10. Okay, so I'm saying, so what is happening here is when I is 1, right? Check, is 1 less than 10? Yes, 1 is less than 10. Then increase I, but this one is going to wait. Instead of increasing I first, what we would do is we would log out the value of I. Then after logging out of the value of I, we would increase I by 1, right? So I now will become 2. We'll now check, is 2 less than 10? Yes, 2 is less than 10. So we would now log out 2, and then we increase I by 1. So I becomes 3. Then, so that is the circle, right? That runs through. That's the what happens actually, right? So that is going to keep happening until when we have that count is equals to 9. We now say is 9 less than 10? Yes, 9 is less than 10. So we would log out 9 and we'll add 1 to 9. 9 will become 10. We'll now check, is 10 less than 10? No, 10 is not less than 10, but is 10 equals to 10? Yes, 10 is equals to 10. We print out 10, and then we add 1 to 10 to make it 11. We check, is 11 less than 10? No. Is 11 equals to 10? No. So since this evaluates to a false, it will not print out 11. I hope you guys are understanding it. Any question? Nobody has a question now. All right, so since anybody doesn't have any question, I think we'll call it, okay, not call it a day. Don't mind me. Now, how do I look through an array? So this one is, I'm just printing out the number, right? How do I look through an array? Look at this. First of all, how many values does this array have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But of course, this first one has the index of 0. This one has the index of 1. This element has the index of 2. This one has the index of 3. And the last element here has the index of 4. So we would say, I want to look through this array. So I would say, I want to stop at where count is 5. So I'd say count is 5. Of course, this is going to stop at 4. Okay, so then here I would say I want students at count. Of course, we know that in the first iteration, right, count is going to be 1. So this loop is going to start at Lovett to run. So in order for me to make it start at Celestine instead of Lovett, I would say count should be equals to 0. Who is not following? Everybody's following. Huh?
Yes, sir, we are following. We are following, sir.
All right, so let me run this. I'll clear this and run it now. And of course, you see Celestine, Lovett, Precious, Martins. But there is still a small issue with this. If I add a new element in that array, let's say Joy, right? Joy is not going to show up in that loop. Now, that is because the we are not using a dynamic value for the length of this array, right? The length of the student array. Instead, we are writing the number directly. What we can do here is, instead of using a number literally here, we can get the length of this array. And I remember I talked about how to get length of an array. So how do we get the length of an array? Can someone remind us what is the how do we get the property, the length property of an array? Someone should try. I'm listening. Anybody?
Something like students dot length.
Okay, beautiful. Someone said students.length. So I'll say students.length here. So students.length is always going to give me the length of that student's array, no matter the number of elements that is there. As the number of elements change, the students.length would always be updated, and we can always use that. So if I do that, we have that Joy is now showing if I remove maybe 2 elements from here and I run it again, you see that it's actually dynamic. It isn't limited, right? So that is how we can use a for loop, right? There are a lot of other ways you can apply using a for loop, right? So, but now let's see. How do you use, so now one key takeaway, or yes, takeaway, because my class I would always give takeaways. We're in Nigeria. Okay. So one key thing you have to take from this class, right, about for loops is that for loops, right, or the for loop accepts 3 arguments. First is the start. Where do you want, what number do you want to iterating from, right? Then the second argument for the for loop is what condition do you want to be met or to be true for that loop to keep running. Okay, so if that condition is always true, the loop will always go on. Okay, then the next or the last one is to know to give us how the steps you want to take from where you're looping from to where the loop is ending. So if I wanted to, for example, print out odd numbers, for example, let me take this back here. If I wanted to print odd numbers alone, right, uh I would say count plus equals to 2. Of course, if I do that, it's 139. Okay, I said 5 here, so I'll say I want to stop at 10. So if I do that, you would see 13579. Okay, so I printed odd numbers. If I wanted even numbers, I'll just change this to 2. So that is going to give me 2468, right? And of course, if I want to include 10, I'll say 246810. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying when I want to start at 2, right? Then is 2 less than 10? Yes, 2 is less than 10. Print 2 out. And after printing 2 out, add 2 to 2 to make it 4. Check, is 4 less than 10? Yes, 4 is less than 10. Print 4. Then after printing 4, add another 2 to that 4 to make it 6. Then check, is 6 less than 10? Yeah, 6 is less than 10. Definitely. Okay, print 6. Then add 2 to it to make it 8. Is 8 less than 10? Cool. Yes, 8 is less than 10. Print it. Then after that, add another 2 again and check. Is 10 less than 10? No. But is 10 equals to 10? Yes. So print that, and then after printing, add 2 again to make it 12. Check, is 12 less than 10? No. Is 12 equals to 10? No. Okay, don't do anything. Break this loop, and then maybe move to other statements that are under. Short and simple. Okay, so let's see how we can do this same thing with a while loop. Now, while loop are different from for loop.
Sorry,
Okay.
sorry, sir. Before we move
Okay.
to the other one,
Okay.
I was thinking about something that is let loop, since it's not a static what's it called, it's very dynamic. So can we try something like let students what's it called, students array equals 0?
Okay, so you're saying I should change this count to students array, right?
Yes, sir.
Students array. Okay. If you're using students array,
No,
then make sure that okay. What's your
not
question?
the array like the array, like we pick the array itself,
So I
like
should
the column. Sorry, exactly.
okay. So I should call this students array instead.
Oh God, you know the we had const students equals to.
Yeah.
Now there are now elements in that array. So that's why I'm
Yes.
saying that you can say something. What if you say something like let students, then we put the array symbol.
Oh. Oh, okay. Okay. I think I understand what you mean. Let's students, then array symbol like this.
Yes. Can we do something like that? Equals 0, then we iterate it from there.
No, no, you can't do that. If you try to run this, it's going to give you an error. It's going to start from here, from where you put this here. Do you know why? This is not um TypeScript. Maybe you're thinking of doing something like this. I don't know. This is not TypeScript, so you can't do that. Okay. So what your and another thing again is even if you write this, let's see. Okay, count must be defined. Count is not defined. Okay, this is not going to definitely work. Okay, so I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right, so now let's do an exercise. This loop, right, brings from 1 to 10, right? From 1 to 10, yes. Yes. Now, let's look at how we can make this loop print from 10 to 1. So someone should try. Tell me what I should write to make this loop print from 10 to 1 instead of 1 to 10. So it should start counting down from 10 to 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Look at the loop and try and
Okay, let me try.
okay.
We should initialize counts to 10.
Okay.
Then counts less than or counts. Then the stop condition should be when count is less than or equal to 1.
Okay. Less than or equal to 1.
Then count minus, so we are decrementing.
Okay. Cool. So it's not working.
Okay.
So someone else should try. You've tried, but there's something you're missing. Someone else should try. Nobody is saying it.
Hello, sir. Sir, can you try changing the less than sign to the greater than sign?
Okay. He's saying I should change the less than sign to the greater than sign. That was the issue. Yay, so we've been able to do our loop. We've been able to create a countdown, right? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's smart of you guys. So let's continue. Now let's see how we can do this same thing with all counting from 1 to 10, right? Let's see how we can do it with a while loop. Now, a while loop doesn't actually it's not mandatory that you must have a start and an increment, right? So a while loop only accepts a condition that has to be true for it to continue running. If you want to add a start and maybe an incremental, right? Then that is left for you. That is up to you. So let's see how we can rewrite this same uh uh count, right? Let's see how we can write it using while loop. If you want to do that in while loop, you would say let count equals to 0 equals to 1 because it's 1 I want to shall start from. But of course, if you're looping through an array, make sure you always start from 0. Then you say while count is greater than, no, sorry, less than or equals to 10. While it's less than or equals to 10, you might want to do something here. So maybe you might want to console.log count. Then don't forget, you're trying to loop from 1 to 10. Remember that you're always going to increase count plus plus. So we're doing this now. What we are saying is, I want to start from 1. Now, notice what I did. This 1, what I'm writing here is not inside the while loop statement, right? It's outside. There's a reason for this. If this count is inside the while loop statement, first and foremost, this is going to be undefined. This count you're trying to check here is going to be undefined. And if it is defined outside, maybe if peradventure you define it outside, that loop might not have an end. If you're using a while loop, it's very possible, right, that you can run into an infinite loop. Very, very possible. So you have to be careful, tread carefully. All right, so let me clear this and let me run the loop. And of course, you see, we are still getting the same results, 1 to 10. Of course, we can also use this to loop through an array, okay? But here is where for loop shines, while loop shines, and while loop might be preferred in some implementation instead of using for loop. Look, think about this. What if you wanted to create an array of like of 12 random, let's say 10 random numbers from 1 to 20, and you want those random numbers to be unique. Let's say one number should not appear in the array twice. You know that while trying to create those set of numbers, one number might be generated twice. I hope you guys are following. If we use the for loop to try to create, let's say 10 random numbers from 1 to 20, I hope you guys are following me. 10 random numbers from 1 to 20, right? And let's say while creating those 10 random numbers, maybe the number 8 was generated twice. If we're using a for loop and maybe we just said let's count equals to 10, and then we now say let's count equals to 0, and then count should be less than 10 or less than or equal to 10. And we now say count plus plus, and then we just keep adding the random numbers that were generated. Or we check if the random numbers generated were if there is duplicates and all the stuff. That random number might not always be 10 because it's possible that one number might be generated twice. Hello, I hope you guys are understanding what I'm trying to explain. Who is not following?
Yes, sir.
Who is not following?
Not following.
Okay, so let me try to repeat myself. I'm generating a random number from 1 to 20, and I want to generate 10 random numbers from 1 to 20, right? If I'm using a for loop, of course, I would want to say I want to loop 10 times. But what if in those 10 times, one number was generated twice? It means at the end of the day, I'll have 9 random numbers instead of 10 random numbers, right? And that might be an issue. But then with a while loop now, I can write a condition to check what if the array of random numbers that is being generated is not up to 10, then just keep on generating the random numbers and checking if there's a duplicate. If there's no duplicate, add that random number to an array. Check if that array has the a length of 10. You understand? If it's not still the length of 10, just keep generating till we now arrive at 10. So let's see how we can actually implement that now. So let me say unique numbers. I want to generate unique numbers from 1 to 20, but yeah, unique numbers from 1 to 20, 10 unique numbers from 1 to 20. So I could say unique number should be equals to an empty array. Okay. Then here I would say while the unique numbers dot length is not equals to 20, is not equals to 10. So what I'm saying here is as far as the unique number, that's the length of that unique number array is not up to 10, keep generating random numbers. So this is what I'll then do here. I'll then say const const random number should be equals to so I would say maths dot floor then here I'd say math dot random times 10. So then what else I could do again? Okay, this is going to generate so I'd say times 100. Then I could maybe write an if else, and I could write an if statement to check if the random number generated, if the random number is greater than 20. If it's greater than 20, then I'll if it is less than 20, so else if it's less than 20, then what I would want to do is I want to check if the unique numbers array includes that number. So I'd say if that unique array includes the random number being generated, of course I'd say maybe const does it include equals to does it include. So of course if it includes, right, I could then say if does it include, or yeah does it include. If it's true that it includes, I want to still skip that iteration, so maybe continue. So if it already includes that number, but else if it doesn't include the number, then I could say unique random numbers dot push, and then I'll push that random number. Of course, let me run this code. So clear, and I didn't print out the unique numbers being generated, so my bad. So console.log. So I'd say unique random numbers. Okay, so let me run that again. Of course, right, we see 15, 6, 3, 13, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 8. And if you check, no number repeats itself twice. And of course, we can also check the length. So I could say maybe the length is, then I'd say unique numbers dot length. Of course, if we do this, the length will always be 10. It will always be 10, and there will always be unique values here. Why? So what I wrote here in this algorithm is, first, generate a number between 0 to 99. That's what I wrote here. So it's going to generate a number between 0 to 99. I want to check, is that random number that random number that is being generated, is it greater than 20? If it's greater than 20, continue. Now, continue is a new statement. What does continue do? Now, continue is going to say, don't continue running this code again till the end. Just start the loop, like start the loop again, like start another iteration. Just when once your compiler encounters a continue statement, it's not going to continue to execute to the end. Rather, it's going to just move over to this line of code again and start executing the loop again. So it would, when once it encounters this continue statement, you just come back to this random number, run it, and then it will check if that random number is greater than 20. So if it's less than 20, so now check. Now if so, what I'm checking here is, does the unique number array, does it contain that random number that was generated? If it is, so what I'm saying is, if it is true that that uh that random number is already here, then continue. This continue is just saying, don't continue, like don't finish this part of the code. Rather, just go and start again from generating a random number and then doing all this. But then if this is false, right? If this does it include is false, it means that that random number generated is not already part of this array. So what do? We then push that random number to that array. So at the end of the day, so when once one number is pushed here, this while loop will check, is the random number's length, is it up to 10? If it's not up to, so now what is happening is, maybe we don't have one element. We are checking, is it true that the length of that unique random numbers, is it true that the length is not 10? Yes, it's true that the length is not 10. So we'll continue doing this as far as the length is not 10. But when once the length is 10, stop. Then when once the length is equals to 10, of course, this would be false. And then what we'll then definitely do next is print out the unique number and the length. So is there any question? Who has a question? Is it confusing, or do you guys now understand? Nobody is saying anything. Is it complex?
Come on, this one, this one complex. I can't lie.
Don't worry, you get used to all these things. These are like not too complex things, right? For example, now let me give an example of where this can be applied. If you're building a school portal, let's say university school portal, right? You know that no two students should have the same reg number, right? Of course, so you can pick you can generate a random reg number, maybe add the year and then add maybe a random digit. And this is just an example. Then you can check on the database. Or another thing you can even do is, if you're going to, I'm just giving this as an example, you can pick all the reg numbers for that's from the database and save it as an array. And then each unique each ID or each reg number you generate, you check if that reg number is already existent in the array of existing arrays you generated, and then if it exists already, no need for it to use it. If it doesn't exist, then you can pair that particular reg number to a student. Okay, so that's just an example. That's by the way. Right. So you can always watch this video again to understand what I explained here in case you didn't follow, right? So let's move on to something else. Is there any other question? Any question? Okay. So let me say this. Apart from the continue statement, we also have another statement called the break statement. Remember that we use break statements in our switch. Now, what does the break statement do? The break statement is used to exit a loop when once that break statement is encountered. For example, break, and then let me run this code. You'd see that this break statement, so it's assumed that after the first three numbers were generated, the fourth number that was generated was greater than 20. So since that number was greater than 20, this break statement was executed. So the break statement is saying just end the loop. Don't like maybe restart the loop or like start from the beginning again. Just break means break. Just exit that loop and move on to something else. Don't try to run the loop again. So that's the difference between break and continue. Continue is saying, okay, since you encountered continue, just go and start from the beginning of that loop and execute. Like check if the length is 10. If it's not 10, then start here to execute, right? But break is saying, I don't want to know, just stop the loop as far as you've encountered break. Right. So you, of course, you know that this would be difficult to write with for loop if you try to execute it using for loop. Maybe because for loop now, we said it must stop at a particular number, right? So here, what we are simply doing is we don't even have an end to this loop. What our end to this loop is just when this unique numbers is the length of this unique number is 20. I'm sorry, it's 10. Okay. Then we have while loop and we also have do while loop. Do while loop. Okay, so now look at this. We can check. Let me change this to equals to. So we are checking. Is the unique number length equals to 10? Of course, this is going to be false from the beginning, right? So let me clear this. And then let's come back here. Okay, now if you look at this, this loop, right, didn't even execute even once. It just, as far as this is false, right, it just stopped the loop. It didn't, in fact, it didn't even execute the loop. It's simply because this is false, right? But what if you wanted to execute your loop at least once? Like so what if you wanted to generate at least one random number, even if the loop was, the condition to check was false from the beginning, right? How do we want to do that? So we would use a do while loop to do that. And this is how you write the do while loop. You would say do first, you write do, and then at the bottom of where you're supposed to end your statement, you will now write a while there. So what I've done is I've converted that while loop to a do while loop. So what I'm saying, and of course put your semicolon there. So what I'm saying here is just do this line of code or this block of code. Do this block of code. Then after doing it, you now come to check if this was even true or false. If this is false, at least we've run the loop at least once. This is like Lagos people when they say, maybe when you jam somebody's car, you know, the person comes down and first slaps you before finding out if you're if you're the right, if you're right or you're wrong, right? So this is like Lagos people look. Just when you come down, just do what your heart tells you first before finding out what is going on. But while loop is like while loop tries to first find out if its condition is true before it starts to execute. If the condition is false, it doesn't do anything. But do while loop acts differently. It will first execute that code at least once. So if we come here and I run node scripts, okay. Running node script, okay. The reason why this didn't show any value is because of this part of the code. That's what I can do. Okay, so what happened? Sorry, what happened first? Why this is still showing 0 is because the random number that was generated is greater than 20. It's greater than 20. That is the reason why continue just executed and then continue made it to check if the length is greater than 10. So if I want this to actually execute, what I'll do is this. So if I do that, what I'm just saying is for whatever random number is being executed, just push it into that unique random numbers. So I can clear this and then run node and script. You see, the length is just 1, which is 32. If I run it again, we see 62. Run it again, 58. Run it again, 98. Run it again, we have 17. Right? But if this is true, which means if this evaluates to true, that's after running it the first time, right? We would have our normal 10, complete 10. But if this is a false, if we had equals to, we just have at least just 1. So, does anybody have any question? Any question based on this? Or you guys need a break? Nobody's saying anything. Anybody? Any break? Or is it too much today? Someone should say something.
Yes,
No,
so
nobody said.
I think we are saturated for today.
You are saturated. Wow. Now brought very heavy English. Okay, don't mind me. It's not heavy English. I'm joking. Right. So, last thing I'm going to show you guys is functions. But don't worry, I'm not going to show you guys too much on functions. Okay, so we'll just do an introduction to functions. Okay. Now, most times, right, when you're writing a program in real life, you want to break your code down into callable blocks, and you can name those callable blocks, right? Imagine if you had a banking app and then when you just open the banking app, that is, you click on the icon for the banking app, it just opens up, it logs in, it transfers money to one account, it sends email to you, it collects your OTP, puts it there, do whatever it wants to do and log you out, and you don't have any button to interact with it. That would be very bad, right? So you might want to break your code into different callable parts, right? And maybe call them on the click of a button, or maybe when the user slides on maybe the screen or something, right? Now those callable uh, blocks of code, right, are functions. So how do I write a function? So I could say this is how you write a function, right? You use function name. That's, you use the function keyword to tell your code that that's the function. Then you now write the name of the function. Maybe you can say something like say hello, right? And then say hello. I could then console.log hello. But definitely if I run this code, nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. So someone should tell me why nothing happens. Someone should try. Why? Why did I read say hello, but
Maybe
nothing happened?
because you did not call the function.
Beautiful. So I didn't call the function. So if I want to call this function to make it execute, right? I'll then say hello. Right. And then that's how to call that function. So if I run the code now, you see hello. And of course, I can call this function a couple of times, right? I could call it twice and it's going to execute twice, right? I could call it 4 times, 3 times, as much as I want to call it, right? And it's going to execute for me. So this is how to write a function, right? Now, there are some functions called anonymous functions, right? And I'm just going to change this to an anonymous function. Oh, sorry, did I say anonymous functions? Let me go into arrow functions instead. That's the last thing we'll do today. So I want to call an anonymous function named hello and then still make it print hello. So that would be me doing this. Const say hello should be equals to bracket open bracket close equals to greater than symbol, then the block of code. Then I could then write console.log, and then I could then say hello with maybe an exclamation mark. Of course, if I run that, it's going to show hello. Now, the difference between this code and this one here is that this function is a named function. The function name is hello, right? While this other one, this is the function I'm trying to call, right? This is the function I'm trying to call, but this function doesn't have a name. But what I'm doing is I'm assigning this function to a variable named say hello. So this variable in a way, right, is used to refer to this function, right? But this function on its own, like this, doesn't have its own name, right? Now, any function that you see that has this notation here is called an arrow function. Okay, it's not much different from the normal function here, right? So this is called an arrow function. So you can either declare your variables this way, right? By giving it a name, or sorry, your function this name by giving it a name like this, or you can declare it this way. So using any of these two formats, once you call it, it's going to run. Is there any question based on what I have explained so far? No question?
A question. So
Ask.
from line 27, you're
Yes.
calling a function.
Yes.
But then, since we say it's a variable, why do we still need to call it with bracket open, bracket close?
Okay, so this is the thing, right? This variable depends on its value. If the value is a function, right, then that variable itself will also be a function. Like it will also be called as a function. If the value of this variable is a string, then you're going to refer to this variable as being a string. So you can then call all the string methods on that variable. So since it contains a function, right, it can be callable. That's just simply it. If this wasn't a function, then you won't be able to call it this way. Okay,
thank you. Yes.
but my point is that this is a function on its own, right? But this, okay, look at this. I could write something like this. If I run it, it will run. But look, this function doesn't necessarily have a name here, right? But the function is assigned to a variable. So this variable is kind of taking the name for that function, but you can't say this variable is the name of this function. This variable is assigned to a function. So if you want to call this function, you can call it by this variable name.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
in other words, you can, for now, you can just assume that this one and this one is the same, right? So that you might not really confuse yourself or ask yourself too much questions. But note that this is a function, right? But this function doesn't have its own name, right? It doesn't have its own name on its own, but it's assigned to a variable. Meanwhile, this one has its own name. So this function here, right? This function here can be called an anonymous function because it doesn't have a name on its own, but it is assigned to a variable. So we are going to look more into functions in our next class. Okay. So we would call it a day at this point. Okay. So this is like 2 hours, right? We would see on Friday, right? And bye for now. There's an announcement I'll make after the class, right? After stopping the record. So just stay tuned, right? So bye for now.